Well, the learning outcome from this module are the following. How the environment basically affects the business. The second would be that what are the various political and legal environment and what are the various socio-cultural environment which affects business. What are the ecological environment and what are the various economic environment which affects the business. What are the various competitive environment and technological environment again affecting the business. And you will also be able to know the various entrepreneurial theories which have evolved over a period of time on entrepreneurship. Then you would also be able to know what are the various economic theories of entrepreneurship. Then what are the various psychological theories of entrepreneurship. And lastly, what are the various sociological theories of entrepreneurship. Now, let me introduce you to the module. Well, you see, in this module, we are going to discuss the business and its environment. How the various environmental factors which are beyond the control of the business organization affects the entrepreneur in starting his or her business as well as in running his or her business. Also, I shall be discussing the various entrepreneurial theories which have evolved over several decades. The various theories are the economic theory, the psychological theory and the sociological theory. Now, let me first talk about business and its environment. You see, environment is the place in which the business works. A business enterprise is influenced by its environment, obviously. Now, there are various forces on which it has no control. Those are the environmental forces. The various forces, we can club it into various types, which are economic, competitive, technological, socio-cultural, political, legal and ecological. Now, all these forces I will talk in detail. Let me first talk about the economic environment. You see, the economic environment consists of factors that influence a consumer's purchasing power and thus his or her spending power, which ultimately affects the firm's business. The various economic factors are business cycle, product life cycle, inflation, unemployment, interest rates and income, which ultimately affects the economic behavior of individuals in a society. Also, it's not just that, even the demographic profile of customers economically affects the firm's sale. For instance, India has lots of children or the young population. So you see, the demand would be more for products which are used by children or by the younger generation. Let's say the sports goods, cricket, bat, football. But if a country has more of, let's say, elderly people, then sports equipment would be less in demand and children products would be less in demand. So you see, demographic file affects a lot in a company's demand. The change in demography can result in significant opportunities and threats to the firm. Now, after the economic environment, let me talk about the competitive environment. You see, the competitive environment can be seen from Michael Porter's 5 forces model. The 5 forces are, number 1, the bargaining power of the suppliers. Now, let me tell you what it means by bargaining power of the suppliers. You see, suppliers are the people who provide raw material to the firm. Now, let's assume that the firm is a monopoly. Then obviously, because he is a monopoly and there are no other firms who are asking for the raw material from the supplier, therefore the bargaining power of the firm becomes very, very high and they can easily negotiate with the supplier at their own terms. Now, the second, the bargaining power of the customers. Again, if the customers are huge, there is a lot of demand for the product and again the firm is a monopoly, that is a single supplier, then obviously the customers do not have a very high bargaining power. Thirdly, the rivalry amongst sellers. Again, if there are very few sellers in the market, let's say again it's a monopoly, then in that case the seller is very, very powerful because he has no other competitors in the market. Fourth, the ease of entry into the same industry, which means there are no barriers to entry, which means more firms can enter into the market. More firms means more competition and lack of monopoly. So in that case, the bargaining power of the firm goes very, very low. And lastly, the availability of the substitutes. This also affects the competitive power of the firm, because more the substitutes in the market, lesser the monopoly of the firm and more competition for the firm in the market. Now, all these forces in one way or the other affect the business environment of the firm. The third, let me now tell you about the technological environment. You know very well this is a world of technology, and a firm which does not upgrade itself or is not up to the technology, which is the latest technology, it will become redundant, its products becomes redundant. So the technological developments are the most threatening in today's world, where every day a new technology is introduced which makes the old one redundant. That reminds me of an example of Kodak cameras. You see, there was a time when Kodak camera was #1 in the world, but what happened? It could not compete with Sony's digital camera, and it was totally swiped off from the market. So you see, if we do not keep in touch with the technology and we do not upgrade with the new technology, the firms become redundant. So the new technology creates new product and new market. Firms have to be aware of new technologies being introduced from time to time in order to stay competitive. They have to quickly adapt to new technologies, otherwise their products will become redundant. Adjusting to the threat due to technological obsolescence is the biggest challenge in the present day for the present day entrepreneurs. Now, let me talk about the socio-cultural environment. This again affects the business or the firm very much, and they are the most difficult, uncontrollable factors to be predicted by a firm. Now, what's going in the mind of the customer, nobody knows. So the firm has to understand the cultural values prevalent in the society. The cultural environment is made up of society's values, perceptions, behaviors, preferences and tastes. Any change in these factors will affect the consumer behavior and hence will impact the sale of goods and services of the firm. Therefore, a proactive entrepreneur can only adapt to such influences and thus survive in the environment. So it's very, very important for a firm and for an entrepreneur to know what's going on in the mind of the customer, what are his tastes, what are his preferences, and also to see what are the values in the society prevailing. Now I'll be telling you about the political and the legal environment which affects the business. You see, firms operate within the legal framework imposed by the government and law enforcing agencies. Factors that may affect an organization's sale are the taxation policy, subsidies, tariffs, export-import policy. The legal and political environment becomes more threatening and complex as the organization becomes global. You see, when a company is formed or is registered in its own country, it has to follow certain rules and regulations. But then if it becomes a multinational company and it starts operating in some other foreign country, it has to again abide by the rules and regulations which are prevailing in that country. So to keep a track of all the rules and regulations, the company has to be really very cautious, and they have to face all kinds of threats. So keeping intact the political and the legal framework is the hardest and the most challenging for a company which has become a multinational company. So adhering to the requirements of legal and political environment which gives legitimacy to the functioning of entrepreneurship in the society is one of the biggest challenges today for multinational companies. Now, I'll talk about the ecological environment. You see, environmental degradation has made businesses accountable towards the environment. We all know about the double bottom line, which is social and economic. But now there's a concept of triple bottom line, which means the companies have not only to address to the social factors, not only to the economic, but also to the environmental factors. They have to have an impact which is a positive impact to the environment. Businesses which generates negative impact to the environment are not found suitable anymore to work in the society. So businesses accountable towards the environment is the most important and the buzz thing today in today's world. Concepts like green marketing, socially responsible marketing and ethical marketing have become the new things in our society. They have gained importance in recent years. Organizations have to function and do trade without harming the environment. They are supposed to use renewable resources and use alternative sources of energy like the solar energy and the wind energy. They have to build their reputation by voluntarily engaging in business practices which reduces environmental degradation and conserves natural resources. By engaging on these areas of societal needs, the entrepreneur's social responsibility is fulfilled, which ultimately helps in devising greater consumer acceptability. Now you all must be knowing how the environment affects the firm and the business. Now I'll tell you about how the various entrepreneurial theories have evolved over the years. You see, it is believed that entrepreneurs who possess the necessary competencies succeed while those deficient in these competencies fail in their ventures. Some believe that entrepreneurs are born, not made, while others believe that entrepreneurs are made, not born. I think this is a debate which keeps on and on and on. Until date, we have not come to a conclusion whether entrepreneurs are made or they are born. I think it's a hybrid of both. Anyway, let's see. Now, in order to resolve the controversy on what makes successful entrepreneurs, various researchers have conducted studies and identified traits present in successful entrepreneurs. These traits have taken the form of theories. Now, I shall be discussing the theories with you, which have been broadly classified into three types. One is economic theory, second is psychological theory, and the third one are the sociological theories. Now let me take each theory one by one. Let me first start with the economic theory. The first theory which comes to my mind is the theory of innovation. The theory of innovation was given by Joseph A. Schumpeter. According to Schumpeter, an entrepreneur is an innovator who brings economic development through new combinations of factors of production. He also said that anyone can be an entrepreneur provided he or she shares new combinations. A person loses out the character of an entrepreneur as soon as he has built up his business and settles down to run it. Hence, it is difficult for a person to remain an entrepreneur throughout his life. He can be a businessman forever, but not an entrepreneur, according to Schumpeterian model of entrepreneurship. Now I'll tell you, according to Schumpeter, what are the 5 kind of innovations which an entrepreneur does. Number 1, an entrepreneur can innovate a new product. He brings a new product into the market. Number 2, he can bring a product into a new market. That means he captures a new market. Number 3, he brings a new technology which makes an old product. Number 4, he finds a new source of raw material which makes the old product. And number 5, he forms a new form of organization. So these are the 5 ways by which a person can become an innovator and thus become an entrepreneur. Now let me take another theory of economic theory of entrepreneurship. This is called the X-efficiency theory. Harvey Levenstein identified 2 broad types of entrepreneurship, namely the routine entrepreneurship and the new entrepreneurship. The routine entrepreneurship is associated with the managerial function of the business, whereas the new entrepreneurship is the innovative form of running your business. The important aspect of entrepreneurship is the gap filling. Hence, it is the job of the entrepreneur to fill the gap or make up the deficiencies which always exist in the knowledge about the production function. The gaps or deficiencies arise because all the inputs in the production function cannot be marketed. It is the entrepreneur who marshals all the inputs to realize final products. Hence, entrepreneurship is a function of input completing and gap filling. For example, certain inputs have been allocated to a firm. Now, these inputs can be used with various degrees of effectiveness. The more effectively they are used, the greater the output. When the input is not used effectively, then the difference between the actual output and the maximum output attributable to that input is a measure of the degree of X inefficiency. Levinstein introduces managerial dimension to entrepreneurship while acknowledging the basic innovative dimension given by Schumpeter. Now that's all about the economic theories. Now I'll talk about the psychological theories. You see, researchers have tried to study entrepreneurship by studying the character and personality traits of people who have started new businesses. According to them, entrepreneurial behavior emanates not from all individuals, rather people with certain typical characteristics have propensity for such behavior. They believe that to become an entrepreneur, one should possess certain traits. Some of the psychological theories which I am going to tell you now are as follows. First, the high achievement need theory. You see, the high achievement need theory was given by D.C. McClelland. According to McClelland, it is the high need for achievement which drives people towards entrepreneurship. This achievement motive is inculcated through child rearing practices which stresses standards of excellence, maternal warmth, self-reliance, training and low father dominance, which means not liking to be under the father's control. So these are the traits which have been identified in entrepreneurs. So people with high achievement motive tend to take keen interest in situations of high risk, desire for responsibility and a desire for a concrete measure of task performance. McClelland identified two characteristics of entrepreneurship, namely doing things in a new and better way and decision making under uncertainty. He stressed the need for achievement or achievement orientation as the most directly relevant factor for explaining economic behavior. This motive is defined as the tendency to strive for success in situations involving an evaluation of one's performance in relation to some standard of excellence. Hence, people with high need for achievement are more likely to succeed as entrepreneurs. That reminds me the Maslow's need hierarchy theory, which says that people with self-actualization need are basically people who have high level of need for motivation. So entrepreneurs are people who have high level of motivation, which means self-actualization need. Hence, people with high need for achievement are more likely to succeed as entrepreneurs. People with high need for achievement are not influenced by monetary rewards, which again I would say are the Maslow's lower needs as compared to people with low achievement. Now, let me take another theory of psychological trait, which is the status withdrawal theory. Now, this was given by E. Hagen. According to Hagen, withdrawal of status respect is the trigger mechanism for changes in personality formation. Status withdrawal is the perception on the part of the members of some special group that their purposes and values in life are not respected by groups in the society whom they respect and whose esteem they value. Hagen identified 4 types of events that produce status withdrawal in an individual. Now let's see what those 4 types are. One is the displacement by force. 2. Denigration of valued symbols. 3. Inconsistency of status symbols with the changing distribution of economic power. And 4. Non-acceptance of expected status on migration to a new society. I think I would like to take the example of, let's say, the Parsi community who came to India, who basically became traders in India, and today also they are flourishing traders in India. The second community which I think of are the Sikh community who came during the partition period in 1947 when India was separated and we were divided into two countries, India and Pakistan, and people from Pakistan fled, mostly the Sikh and the Punjabi community, Hindu Punjabis. They came to Delhi and other parts of India, and we see how they all became entrepreneurs, and today most of them are quite rich and very flourishing entrepreneurs. So they had some kind of a status withdrawal, and that triggered the entrepreneurial seed in their mind. So Hagen describes an entrepreneur as a creative problem solver who is interested in things in the practical and technological realm. He feels a sense of increased pleasure when facing a problem and tolerates disorder without discomfort. So you see, what normal or general publics find as a problem, the entrepreneur sees it as an opportunity and he tries to seek that opportunity. Now, another theory which I am going to talk to you about is the desire for autonomy. This theory was given by Collins and Moore. According to Collins and Moore, entrepreneurs have the trait of autonomy, independence and self-reliance. The entrepreneur is viewed as driven by unresolved conflicts around authority stemming from the early relationship with his parents. The fathers of the entrepreneurs are unsupportive and do not share a healthy relationship with them, whereas their mothers are more devoted and caring. This gives rise to a high need to dominate and a fear of being dominated in the entrepreneurial personality. Now, let me take another theory. This is called the function of social, political and economic structure. This theory was evolved by John H. Kunkel. Now, the behavioral model given by John H. Kunkel is concerned with the actions of individuals and their relations to the previously and presently surrounding social structures and physical conditions. Entrepreneurial behavior is a function of the surrounding social structure, both past and present, which can be influenced by the manipulative economic and social incentives. According to Kunkel, entrepreneurs are not equally distributed in the population. Minorities have provided most of the entrepreneurial talent, but all minorities are not important sources of entrepreneurship. For instance, the Sikh, Jain, Marwari and Parsi minority communities have been an important source of supply of entrepreneurship in India. Similarly, the Jews, a minority community, has been an important source of entrepreneurial supply in Europe and America. Further, Kunkel has identified 4 structures in the society which are responsible for entrepreneurial supply. The 4 structures are limitation structure, demand structure, opportunity structure and labor structure. In limitation structure, the society limits specific activities and this limitation structure affects all the members of a community. In demand structure, individuals are made entrepreneurial by providing them material rewards. In opportunity structure, factors of production such as capital, labor, markets, management, technological skills and information concerning production methods are made available to individuals who later become entrepreneurs. Labor structure is concerned with the supply of competent and willing labor. The supply of labor is governed by factors such as available alternative means of livelihood, traditionalism and expectations of life. Now let me tell you about another theory. This is called the locus of control theory. This was given by J. Rotter. According to J. Rotter, there are 2 types of people, and mind you, we do fall in one of the categories. First are called the externals. These are the people who believe that what happens to them is a result of fate, chance, luck or forces beyond their control. The second category are the internals. These are people who believe that for the most part, the future is theirs to control through their own effort. Now let me take an example. Suppose I have done badly in the exam. Now there are two options I have. If I am an external, I would put the blame on the examiner, the paper setter, my mother was sick, or maybe I was sick, or maybe the teacher didn't teach me well, so therefore I couldn't study well. So I'll put the blame for my bad examination on others or on the environment. So I'm the external person. I'm a person who has external locus of control. Now let me take another example, which is internal locus of control. In this case, if I do my exam badly, I'll put the blame on myself. I'll be ready to take the responsibility for doing badly in my exam on myself. And I can come out with various reasons, like I did not study hard enough, or I did not go to the library, I did not attend my classes regularly. So I'll try to analyze what went wrong with me, and I'm ready to take the blame on my shoulders. So I would be an internal locus control person. So J. Rotter feels that entrepreneurs are people who have internal locus of control. These are people who undertake new businesses and are often driven by internal locus of control. They have strong beliefs in themselves and therefore have a high degree of self-confidence. They believe that they have the ability to control the outcomes of their entrepreneurial ventures. Now let me talk about another theory. This is called the Sociological Theory. Now, the sociological approach tries to explain the social conditions from which entrepreneurs emerge and the social factors that influence their decisions. The decision to become an entrepreneur is taken as a function of two factors. The first is the momentum factors and the second one is the situational factors. The momentum factors that motivate an individual to become an entrepreneur are negative displacement, positive push and positive pull. Negative displacement begins with the notion that people who find themselves displaced in some negative way may become entrepreneurs. Negative displacement is the marginalization of individuals or groups of individuals from the core of society. They are groups which are seen as not fitting in the main flow of social and economic life. One such example are the immigrants who have no one to depend upon, hence they look for self-employment as their means of livelihood, which I already mentioned, like the Sikh community who came to India, who fled to India during the time of partition. Now, positive influences also lead to this decision to become entrepreneur, and these are called positive pull influences. They can come from a potential partner, a mentor, a parent, an investor or a customer. Parents' occupation can have a positive pull influence on the offspring. An entrepreneur's child may also take up entrepreneurship. We have seen in the case of Tatas and Birlas and Ambanis. Of course, Tatas is not so, but still we have seen that they try to empower their successors. But these are the family businesses which have been going for several decades in India. Positive push factors include things such as a career path that offers entrepreneurial opportunities or an education that gives the individual the appropriate knowledge and opportunity. It is not always a positive push that makes one entrepreneurial. Sometimes a negative push makes a person take entrepreneurship as a career. For instance, lack of alternative methods of occupational choices may push an individual towards entrepreneurship. Now, some of the important sociological theories I am going to mention now. First one which I will take up is called the Protestant ethics theory. Max Weber analyzed religion and its impact on enterprising culture. According to him, the spirit of capitalism is a set of attitudes towards the acquisition of money and the activities involved with it. He distinguished between the spirit of capitalism and the adventurous spirit. The former is subjected to strict discipline and the latter with giving free rein to impulse. The spirit of capitalism can be generated only when mental attitude in the society is favorable to capitalism. According to Weber, the Protestant ethic provides this mental attitude, while Hinduism lacks such an attitude. This doctrine was later rejected, as in the case of post-independent India, religion did not pose any kind of hindrance in entrepreneurial development. The post-independent India showed a huge growth of economic development due to the emergence of large number of entrepreneurs, both big and small. They were mostly Hindus like the Ambanis, who are at present the richest businessmen in India. Now, another theory is called the group level pattern theory. It was given by F.W. Young. F.W. Young's group level pattern theory is a theory of change based on society's incorporation of reactive subgroups. He suggests a casual sequence where transformation codes are developed by the solidarity groups to improve their symbolic position in their larger structure and become entrepreneurs. According to him, entrepreneurial characteristics are found in clusters which may qualify themselves as entrepreneurial groups. Entrepreneurial activity is generated by the particular family background, experience as a member of a certain group, and as a reflection of general values. Another theory is called the cultural values and social structure theory. This was given by Thomas Cochrane. According to Thomas Cochrane, the process of economic development, entrepreneurs are not seen as divine or supernormal individuals, but are rather visualized as representing society's model personalities. This personality is molded by prevailing child-rearing practices and schooling common to a given culture. Thus, family and hereditary occupation play a great role in making individuals entrepreneurial. So, you see, I have just spoken about the various theories of entrepreneurship. I spoke about the economic theory, the psychological theory, and the various sociological theories. And all these theories tell us that entrepreneur is a person who has certain personality, or entrepreneur may be a person who has evolved due to a particular cultural background, or entrepreneur may be a person who has innovated certain things like Schumpeterian entrepreneur. So you see, we cannot say an entrepreneur is a particular person with particular traits. There is till date no uniform definition of the word entrepreneur, which is universally accepted. So we have to follow all the three theories of economics, psychology and sociology to understand, to have a comprehensive understanding of the term entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. And we also saw how environment affects the business. So a business has to adapt to the environment and look properly into the legal aspects, the political aspects, the ecological aspect, the sociological aspect, and various other aspects in order to survive well and to be sustainable in the long run. Thank you so much.